Okay. Well, I mean, thank you so much, everyone, and thank you for the intros. And there are a wide range of kind of needs and reasons why we're here. A couple of kind of common themes. Some people are kind of new in role and looking to think how do they kind of like thrive in that role. Some people are, another common theme was how this unfortunately can still be quite a male-dominated environment, and how do you navigate and manage that kind of situation. So hopefully we can cover off some of those things. There might be natural points in the talk or the presentation where please do put up your hand and just say, hey, we'd like to kind of delve into this a little bit more. I'll cover off some of the kind of the key skills more than others, as we'll kind of see. But if we do want to just pause in any one of those, then do say, and we can have a bit of a discussion. But let me just share my screen and then we can get going. So hopefully you can all see my screen. Okay, great stuff. Okay, so I'm here to talk about the top five soft skills that I think every tech leader needs. And before we kind of go on further, there aren't just five. There are a whole plethora, and we could probably spend a day talking about soft skills. So these are the ones that I suppose have been most pertinent to me and how I've kind of navigated in my kind of journey. And to be honest, soft skills are something that it's a bit of a journey that we're all on. I'm still on a journey. I still go into meetings like sometimes to think, oh, I'm freeze or whatever. But over time, I've kind of been helped by some tooling that kind of has helped me. So hopefully this will actually be useful to some people. And some of us on the call are coaches. I'm a coach as well, but we've got other coaches on the call as well who are kind of quite adept in kind of helping to navigate these as well. So very happy and keen to hear everyone's point of view, even if you're not a coach. Everyone has some experience and can help each other. So that's that. So about me, I'm a program manager currently at the BBC, but I've worked in a plethora of organisations and industries over the past 15 years. Like I said, I'm an exec career coach, and I have my own business, Coach Perry, where I help senior execs develop their own executive presence and help thrive in that setting as well. I'm a trustee of Off the Record, an amazing youth mental health charity that operates in Bath and the surrounding areas. So if you ever want to kind of give and support the charity, that would be a great one to do. Obviously, I'm biased, but there you go. But like I said, I'm passionate about helping people unlock their confidence and executive presence. So that's a little bit about me. During the talk, do watch out for some homework. But don't worry, I'm not going to check up on anyone. We're not going to kind of feedback in the next session how you got on. But I sometimes feel like we kind of come to these talks and we hear it and it's good, but then there's nothing tangible that we can do afterwards. So a little bit of homework, look out for that. Like we said, there'll be a little bit of a surgery at the end where we can just share ideas. It won't just be me talking, but I'm sure everyone has a voice. Everyone does have a voice, but I'm sure everyone is able to share a little bit about what they've been through if they feel comfortable to do so as well. Feel free to ask questions as we go along. Just raise your hand. But if we do need to move on because of time, please do so. And Kevin, please keep me honest around time as well. So now, I mean, truth be told, I don't usually like these kinds of talks. I don't usually like a lot of the Instagram and TikTok channels I follow, not because the advice they give is bad, but because often these talks and so forth, they don't really address who we are and our starting point. Often it's a bit of a kind of try this and follow me type thing. Not that the advice is bad, but actually without anchoring it into who we are, where our own strengths and weaknesses are, then actually some of that advice might feel a bit jarring. It might feel a bit kind of, oh, does this feel natural to me? Um, so the truth is that all soft skills, in my opinion, come from a position of self-confidence, of self kind of grounding, a self-presence within. And that's I'm going to focus a little bit of that, or a lot of the talk on that first, before we go into some slightly more the generic kind of good skills as well. And just kind of hit that point home, all the outward things that we kind of see in terms of listening, communication, and negotiation, those are the things that we often see in good communicators and good people who do have these soft skills. But I kind of find that underlying a lot of that, or what should underlie that, are the kind of confidence, the self-awareness, and authenticity that comes with practice along the way. So one of the things I think if we get to focus on first is a little bit of that self-awareness. All good soft skills and well, all good skills that help us thrive in the work environment comes from knowing ourselves. I did a coaching qualification a few years ago, and one of the things that they kind of drummed into us was not just how do we analyze other people or here are the tools to kind of help people grow, but a lot of the course was actually focused on understanding myself, and I think that was really key. So the first thing I'd like us to do, if we spend half a minute um, just recognizing or kind of listing some of our own strengths and weaknesses. I'm not going to necessarily ask anyone to kind of reveal what they are, but I think it's just useful just for if you just take a moment, and if everyone would just like to just list down a few of their strengths and weaknesses, and then we'll kind of move on from there, and we'll kind of see what we do with this afterwards. But just let's just spend 30 seconds just thinking about what our strengths and weaknesses are. And you can use some of the examples on the screen to guide you, or you can do some yourself. Kevin, cue the music.
I haven't prepped any interlude music. Sorry, Perry.
That's okay. That's okay. I was hoping you had, but
We'll plan this better next time, mate. Sorry about that.
no worries.
I can ask Alexa to stick something on if you want.
I mean, that would be good. I mean, but we may run out of time. Right. Hopefully, we've all had a chance to write down a few examples of our strengths and weaknesses. And it's first to say that whatever came into your mind, whether it's a strength or weakness, that's okay, right? Great leaders aren't people who don't have weaknesses, but actually, the people who are most successful are the people who are aware of them. And the reason behind that is if we are aware of what our strengths and weaknesses are, we can actually play to our strengths and actually cover our weaknesses. So, say for example, if you're a great listener, that's a really amazing tool that you can use to build relationships with stakeholders. So, before you go into a meeting, um, just get to know the people who are going to be in that meeting beforehand so you can actually listen to them, understand what their angle is. If, for example, one of your weaknesses is saying no, then actually you can start to practice setting boundaries with people and starting off small and start saying, actually, in this engagement, I know I'm going to have to say no, or I'm going to kind of help defer or delegate if you're in a position of leadership. Um, if you aren't good at presenting, you can think, how do you navigate that by preparing well or practicing speaking in front of people? If you're the kind of person who is calm under pressure, that's an amazing tool as well for you to be a kind of anchor point if your team is stressed. So, homework number one is just go away and think about how you want to build on your strengths and maybe identify an interaction that you know is coming up and think, how am I going to build on my strengths and how am I going to cover my weaknesses? Okay, so that's homework number one for us all. Right. And why is this important? Okay, and true story, I used to think that I had to act like Barack Obama. I thought I had to kind of practice, I had to learn from him and put into practice the kind of things that he would do, or Colin Powell as well. Um, but I'm not Barack Obama. I'm not Colin Powell. I'm not Richard Branson. I'm not any of these people. The thing is that they all have their own personal style, and me trying to imitate them just on the surface actually felt quite jarring. It's much better to think, actually, I am quite good under pressure. And so let me lean into that. I've been told that I listen well. Let me lean into that a bit more. And the more we kind of understand who we are and get comfortable with who we are, warts and all, actually we'll start to project that confidence. And once we start to kind of have that inner confidence, I guarantee you that executive presence, those soft skills will just flow naturally. Okay. I'm going to pause for a little bit of breath just there. Is there anything else? Is there anything anybody wants to kind of say on soft skill number one at all?
Just one observation I had was often your weaknesses are the sort of the flip side of your strengths. I mean, not all the time, but that's, you know, you can be like, I said I was very detailed and logical, but then I can overthink things, and I don't deal well with uncertainty, and those are actually the opposite sides of the same coin.
That's a really good point. And I think it's really good to kind of be aware. I hadn't really clocked that, but I think it's a really good revelation. Actually, like you're saying, sometimes what you have as a strength, you kind of the flip side is a bit of a weakness as well. And perhaps having that awareness means you're able to kind of navigate that and cover those off. Do you want to say anything more on that? How you navigate the fact that one of your strengths could actually be the flip of a weakness?
Well, I think just having the awareness, being able to go, oh, hang on a minute, I've gone down a rabbit hole, and you know that it is that awareness that it is partly getting feedback from people and which helps you with that self-awareness, and then it is looking at spotting when you're doing it, and then like you say, practicing what an alternative response could be. So you've got it in your armory next time the situation arises.
Yes. Thank you. That's awesome. And you mentioned another thing which is really good in all of this, which is feedback. I can't stress how much feedback is a really good tool, because we might have a perception of ourselves, and we obviously do, but getting feedback from other people to say, actually, in this engagement, you were great at this, or this might have been a blind spot. Ask someone who you trust really well to give you some feedback as to kind of how you're operating, and that's invaluable. And I'm really I'm really a strong proponent of continuous feedback, not just at the kind of half year or kind of end of year, kind of get it in before your next appraisal, but actually building up that feedback throughout the year is really good. Yeah.
The thing that this hammered home for me, Perry, is actually what you said before about it's okay to have these, you know, if you put this as a weakness, it's not a problem. If you haven't put this as a strength, it's not a problem. You know, these are the ideal mix of skills you would have. But this just hammers home to me. I know lots of very successful people who don't have self-awareness, and we could probably all think of somebody that we've worked for that is completely unaware of how they come across and you know what values that they are supposed to be representing but don't actually represent in real life, who have still managed to be successful. So yeah, it makes you think about when people have got imposter syndrome because they might not feel like they've ticked all the boxes you're going to talk about today. They really don't have to, but if there is a weakness, they should work on it.
Yes.
Yeah. Could I add in, Perry, as well? I think you're absolutely spot on picking self-awareness as soft skill number one. And I think getting people to really reflect on understanding themselves, I think is absolutely spot on, because we all think we know one another's, but getting people to really reflect and think deeply about this is a real good one. So if anybody is struggling, then just reach out to one of the coaches that will help you with this. And I think the other thing to add in here is note where perhaps you get irritation or you're triggered by something, because that might help in better understanding one of those strengths or weaknesses that you've got.
Thank you. Yes, true. I mean, observing yourself, like you're saying, actually kind of what grates me. So I don't like, for example, I don't like chaos. I'm from a project team that really kind of makes me feel nervous and anxious. And I need to be able to manage that. I need to be able to kind of operate under chaos in a calm, measured way. I'm good under pressure, but that's because I hate chaos and I have to try and kind of navigate that. But I think understanding where those things are, 100%. Yeah.
Absolutely, I'm with you there. I think me and you as program managers, you can't be a program manager and dealt with that. You've got to have your things to do list. You've got to organise, haven't you? So yeah, I'm exactly the same as you there.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Christine. Okay, I'm going to move on now. But we did spend a bit of time on self-awareness because that self-grounding shapes and a launch pad for everything else. Everything else we're going to discuss today, every other soft skill has to be rooted in that self-awareness and that self-branding. That's why I'm spending a bit of time on that. But let's move on. Another thing that we learn that coaching teaches you to do is listening, and listening with intent. You might sort of think that the people who talk more are great leaders. And sometimes, like Kevin was saying, we get some people, some people who are successful and they just kind of blaze and bulldoze a room. That's not to say that if you are someone who likes to talk, that's a bad thing. That could be a strength. Sometimes it could be a weakness. But I suppose the point in this is that number two, in terms of, for me, a soft skill is being able to listen intently. Often we listen in order to respond, in order to kind of have something to say back, kind of can reply to what someone's saying. But being able to listen actually means you're paying attention not just to what they're saying, what people are saying, but they're also their what's not being said, their body language. Say, for example, if you're a new leader and you've got a team member who is struggling, but then who's obviously struggling, but they're saying, "Yeah, I'm fine," and then you kind of delve into that conversation a bit more. But they keep saying I'm fine, but they're a bit nervous or they're a bit agitated or they're kind of looking around because they're not really sure of themselves. You can start to pick up on that kind of thing. So listening more and listening. A bit of a tip there is to kind of echo back what people are saying. You might have noticed I've done a bit of that already on this call, but just echoing back what someone is saying. So saying, so what you're saying is this, or what I'm hearing from you is X, Y, and Z. Not only does that ensure that you're listening, but it also makes the other person feel heard. And that actually builds trust and builds relationship with that person as well. So not only are you practicing a skill, but you're also developing a relationship. And that relationship actually might help you navigate whatever challenge you're going through with the person that you're interacting with as well. Okay, so that's soft skill number two. I won't spend loads of time on this because we haven't got loads of time. But yeah, I'll move on unless anyone has anything particular to say on listening with intent. Right, oops, going backwards there. Let's go forwards. Right, so we're going to spend a little bit of time on strength versus warmth because this was a game changer for me. When I kind of grasped this, when I was on a kind of a training day at my old organization, and the trainer picked up on this particular concept of strength and warmth and how we communicate. That made the difference to my communications. So the idea around it is that in every interaction, you are conveying either strength or warmth, or a bit of a blend of the two, right? So strength would allow you to command respect and bring assertiveness to a situation where needed. Warmth is the softness and the understanding and the empathy, which also kind of brings an element of trust to a situation. I'm going to bring up on the screen two scenarios. Okay, so imagine situation scenario A. You've got a stakeholder, and they're pushing back on some hard deadlines. However, your team, so you're the leader of the team needs you to set boundaries and to protect delivery. Scenario B, you've got a team member who looks disengaged and withdrawn, and you need to bring them back to kind of help support them. So which scenario do you feel calls for strength? Which one calls for warmth, would you say?
Scenario is strength, B warmth.
Mm-hmm. Yes. No, yeah, thank you for that. What can you just delve a bit more? Thank you, Karen. Like delve a bit more into why you feel that is.
Because I feel like in scenario B, the person that's disengaged, you need to find out why they're disengaged. So rather than just assuming they're just not interested, there might be something going on in their personal lives. Just something might be upsetting them. So engaging with the empathy side of your personality to bring out that warmth. And then just on the scenario A, just more assertive, really. It doesn't matter if someone's pushing back hard on deadlines, you've got a job to do, which is to protect delivery.
Yes, yes, 100%. I think that's definite. And you might, you might be having those two conversations on the same day or on in the same hour, for example. And so being able to understand where you should lead into with either strength or warmth is really key. Right. And like you say, yeah, just a little bit of examples of there. I won't read them out, you can look for yourselves. Those are the kinds of things you might say. You can judge the tone of those two examples, um, and see actually how strength and warmth might play in those two interactions. Okay, right. Scenario C is slightly different. So a team member has repeatedly missed deadlines and it's affecting the whole project. You need to address their performance, but you also want to keep them engaged and motivated. And you probably guess where we're kind of going with this, is that this particular interaction requires both strength and warmth in the same in the same conversation. So, and you can see I've kind of split up the response into definite sections, and you can guess and you can gauge for yourselves which part of that interaction is leaning more on strength and more on warmth. And again, the whole idea is that as we start to kind of flex these kind of soft skills muscles, we will start to identify actually what are the kind of phrasings and the language that I should use to be successful in this particular interaction or not. Okay. Right. So homework number 2, also quite linked to our first homework. It's about reflecting on ourselves. So why don't you identify what your natural tendency is? Sometimes your natural tendency is to be quite direct and quite forthright. And sometimes the tendency to kind of use that style in every interaction to varying degrees of success. So homework number 2, why don't you identify a situation where you might need to flex, especially your non-default style, and just practice in that. My natural style is warmth. I tend to build relationship through warmth and humor. And sometimes I think one of the things I kind of found, actually, my first engagement with a coach was my first thing I said to them was, people aren't taking me seriously. People think I'm the funny guy. And actually, it's because often I was using my default style in every situation. Sometimes I need to show up with leadership, with execs and whoever, actually with that assertive presence. Sometimes I need to kind of build in that warmth in order to kind of gain relationship and kind of empathy and trust with the team. And what I wasn't doing was actually tailoring my response to suit the situation that I needed to be in, that I was in. I'll pause a little bit there. Any questions or any thoughts on skill number 3?
No.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's go through the next 2 relatively quickly. Those that I've kind of gone deep dive on 2 of the skills. The next 2 will be slightly quicker. So emotional agility. I love this kind of the top bullet point. We tend to have 2 different types of ways of addressing a situation. We can either respond or can react. When we react to a situation, it's the kind of like immediate, kind of no filtered email sent. I'm going to kind of write back an email straight away, and boom, there it is. They're going to get it both barrels because it's triggered something within me, and I've got to react to it. Responding looks more like taking a step back and saying, okay, that email, that comment for that person, I'm going to take some time to respond, to think, and let that initial emotional reaction pass before I kind of give my thoughts on it. I like the phrase "strike while the iron is cold," because that really, don't strike while the iron is hot. Sometimes that might serve you in certain situations. Often in our engagements in the office or the business, whatever, it's actually better to give it an hour before we before we do kind of address the situation. Typically, and even in a situation, I've been in situations where someone's asked me in a meeting, Perry, what are your thoughts? The worst question you can be asked, in my opinion, the worst thing someone can ask you in a meeting is, hey, what are your thoughts? And you're like, ugh. Actually, building in a little bit of a pause, I find even a 3-second pause, it might seem like an eternity to you. Actually, 3 seconds is not that long in the grand scheme of things. Just give yourself that time to think and just give the cortisol some time, not to just kind of rush into your bloodstream. Just give yourself time to breathe before you respond actually makes a world of difference. So maybe the next time you've been asked a difficult question, just try that 3-second pause and just give yourself a little bit of that thinking time. Allow your kind of heart rate to kind of reduce a little bit before you actually respond. Okay. If at all you have any questions or thoughts, do kind of raise your hand as we go along. Lastly, and I suppose for me, this is the kind of pulling things back together, that sense of presence and confidence is soft skill number 5. How do you do that? For me, for example, my confidence, I know that preparation and being authentic is key. I like to prepare before sessions. One of the first bits of advice I got when I came to uni, I had a meeting. It was one of the first or second meetings I had when I had like senior people around me. I was really nervous. I was like, what, 20 years old or what, 21 years old? Anyway, the one of the people in the room, I don't know who he is, and to be honest, I never met him ever again. He was an external party came in. He said, Perry, one of the things you should always do is make sure you're prepared going into whatever meeting you're in. Whether he saw that I needed that advice or not, it's stuck with me. And this may not be the same for everyone. Some people are more adept at kind of speaking on the fly, and that's cool. That's one of their strengths. But I do feel that in some way, you need to be prepared. And it's interesting, I'm working quite closely with the CPO of our company now, and you wouldn't believe the time how often actually they need briefing notes. They need to go into a meeting having something to anchor their thoughts on. So yeah. And also just presence, your body language, your tone, and the words you use all align to how you are and how your actual physical presence is. So sometimes even just check yourself. Check, are you hunched over, for example? If I was speaking the whole meeting like this, would you see me as a credible source of information? For example, the tone I'm using, the words that I use, how does that come across? You can give me feedback later if you like. No, but I do genuinely, please do give me feedback. Do kind of hit me up on LinkedIn and give me some feedback on how you found this talk. But it's not always about being the loudest person in the room. It's about being grounded and linking back to that self-awareness and self-confidence as well. Right, and so pulling it all together, we've gone through some of my top 5 soft skills for leaders, but there isn't a perfect template. Again, it is that grounding and seeing what works well for you in your context. Muscles, strengthen those soft skills muscles, do the homework, and then flex them based on your own particular context as well. Right, so yeah, thank you very much, everyone. I'll leave this up for a bit. Now it's kind of on to you. What soft skill challenges might you be facing? Have you got difficult stakeholders? Are you struggling to be heard or struggling to cut through in sessions? Do you feel like have you got feedback that you are too direct? Have you got feedback that you're a bit of a nice person, you're a bit too nice? Anyway, food for thought, but thank you very much. That's the end of the talk, but let's kind of have a bit of a discussion.
Should we start off with the strengths and weaknesses or the natural stuff?
Oh, do you mean what as part of the homework?
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to kind of like delve into that, then yeah, let's go for it.
Just kind of my weaknesses. I also really struggle to say no. I really hate conflict, so I'll try and avoid it where I can, which is obviously not a great trait to have when you're managing projects. And yeah, and then sometimes when you're on a group call and somebody asks you that question and you need that 3-second delay just to get your thoughts together, but you've got the pressure of 25 people looking at you, sometimes I don't know how to navigate that. So I'll just kind of waffle on, I just need to get things sorted in my head, which direction we're going in, and then it'll kick in and I get there. So just any tips on how to deal with that better?
Yeah, thank you. So there's an element of not finding it easy to say no, and also that kind of like, sometimes, especially as a project lead or kind of a leader, you are on the spotlight, and with that comes the expectation of a reasonable response. Let me open that up to the floor. Does anyone have any thoughts on how to manage those two things?
I would pick up that it probably feels like you're wanting to respond really quickly, but they would be very comfortable with the pause.
Right.
So is it coming from a place of you being uncomfortable or
Yes.
them being uncomfortable? So recognizing it's you that's uncomfortable, what are the things you may be able to do around that? And maybe it might be, just give me a minute to think about that, to give you the best answer while you're thinking, might be one thing. I think it's a little bit of play about with it and try and see what you're comfortable with, because if it's coming from you, you need to find the right thing for you.
So it's not such a bad thing to kind of just waffle on for a little bit and just kind of say, I'm just thinking this logically in my head. Those are the kinds of things that
I'm not a fan of waffling. I think it's more be comfortable with the pause.
Right. Okay. Got it.
And if you're not, watch your sentence. Like, just give me a minute to let me just think about that and collect my thoughts, and then pause and then answer. I don't know, Perry. What would you say?
I definitely agree with that, and I saw it done because sometimes I do it, and it feels kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm talking for a long time, but actually I saw someone else do it. I saw someone that was asked a difficult question, and they were just sat there and they didn't respond for a couple of seconds, and then I wasn't like, come on, this is getting embarrassing. I was actually just I was just kind of, okay, well, this person's thinking about it. I think that's fine. And also something else I do is, and this may not be right in every, or you may not be able to do this in every situation, but I just like to prepare, like, what are the questions I'm going to get asked in this session. So if, for example, I'm presenting something on the finances of a project, and sometimes I know that this particular stakeholder is going to go down into every single detail, I just make sure I know all the things that I'm going to be asked. Sometimes in my last organization, I don't like the terminology, but they called going through like a hostile Q&A preparation. So just understanding what all the quote unquote hostile questions you might get, and that might actually, 9 times out of 10 they don't ask those things, but actually the one time that they do, actually you are more able to answer those questions as well. But yeah, definitely giving yourself time to think and then responding, that does help, but also anticipating questions is also helpful.
Great, thank you.
Does anyone have anything on the kind of not being on saying no, on being able to kind of actually not just say yes all the time? Any other thoughts on that?
So for me, it's about understanding the ultimate objective. So if you've got your ultimate outcome that you're looking for, then if you want to say yes to the ultimate outcome, you sometimes have to say no to some of the things that are trying to push you off course. And whoever's asking you, if they actually want the ultimate outcome as well, if you're not actually saying no to them, you're actually helping them get to the overall outcome, even if you have to say no to their individual. So it's individual requests. So it's keep the eye on what the ultimate outcome is that you're trying to get to, and so certainly in project management terms, protecting the scope, so saying no to things, is actually means you will then be successful in the overall outcome. So look at it as a positive rather than negative.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd add there. I think Susan, you're spot on there, but perhaps the other question is, what's the consequence of you saying yes? And that might help you to focus your mind as to whether you are causing yourself or the program issues.
Yeah, 100%. So there's an element of actually, like, are you actually doing harm to your program or yourself by saying yes? And also, are you actually helping? Is it actually being helpful to the person if you said no? And the only thing I'd add to those two as well is sometimes the reason that we don't like saying no is because we we don't like upsetting people. We don't like making people feel bad. And sometimes, it's okay. How someone else responds to what you said, that's their bag. And that's for them to deal with. And it's okay for them to deal with that thing and manage their own emotional state for themselves. If you say no because you know that you haven't got the bandwidth or your team hasn't got the bandwidth, then actually how they respond to that is okay. And it's okay to say no. And it's okay to be disliked as well. Not that everyone's going to say, not that people will dislike you for saying no, but even if they did, it's okay if people don't like you.
Mary, one question. What are the, I think stakeholder engagement is a unique balance between yes and no. What are your tips for bringing maximum stakeholder engagement as a project manager?
So the question is, navigating that, saying yes to some things and saying no to others, and bringing people along the journey with you. Is that fair?
Yes. No, actually, sometime you have to bring other people's, you have to put others people point of view up so that they can explore, they can open to you, they can share their ideas. If you say no, what you already conveyed, that no is upsetting the people. So what is, my question is how you can bring maximum stakeholder engagement? What are your tips while you are dealing as a project manager? And you want to bring maximum stakeholder engagement. I think that it is a unique balance between yes and no, where you will be giving them chance, going accordingly with them, and then limiting that, oh no, I will not agree with this. Then that is all a unique balance. So what is your tips? I just want your idea over this.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give my thoughts, then we can open it up to everyone else as well. And I'm going to pause for 3 seconds, just to give myself some time to collect my thoughts on that.
It is very good question. You can take your time. Yeah.
No, it is a really good question because, I mean, often you don't want to lose the route, right? You don't necessarily want to say no, and then everyone's like, well, they said no, and then everything kind of like goes to pot and everything. Equally, you don't want to say yes, and then your team thinking, why have they just committed me to doing all this kind of stuff? And to be honest, I think it's how you communicate the no. I think being able to say no graciously, or being able to say, this is what we can do. You've still got to have that strength to say, the team can only commit to doing X, Y, and Z by this time. What we will do is we will make sure that we catch up with you in regular stages so that we give you an update as to kind of our progress. And if we can, then obviously we will. But this is our capacity, and look at our kind of burn down chart, and you can see how the team is tracking. You can look at our confidence rating. So what we can say yes to is giving you X number of features with X number of confidence, with 80-degree confidence. If you want us to give you the world, then our confidence is going to drop to probably 40%. And so you're kind of giving your stakeholders a bit of a kind of decision point. Do they want everything with 40% confidence, or do they want 70% of the stuff with 80% confidence? And starting to manage that and turning it more into a bit of a dialogue as well. What does everyone else think?
I like that, but my brain went off in a different direction, and I thought of two potential things. I thought we're saying yes or no, but sometimes there's a not yet answer. So maybe think about that. And then my other thought was sometimes the question is not very clear. And I like using the be curious. Are you really clear of the background as to why they're asking for, so if it's come out of the blue, then maybe it's more about being curious and asking why that's important to them or where it's come from before you answer the yes or no.
That's a really good observation.
Really good,
yeah, actually, that what is the why behind the ask? Why are they so invested in having this? And sometimes, actually, as you interrogate that a bit more, in their mind, they actually become more amenable to whatever response you're about to give them.
Yeah.
No, thank you very much. It's a really good question. Hey, Joe.
So I've got a situation like I mentioned before. So I've got 4 male co-founders that I work closely with, and I find it really difficult to like communicate with them. They're all very different personalities, and I've tried different ways. And I guess I should caveat this with a lot of the time communication is over Slack rather than like face to face and stuff. I've tried, can we jump on a quick huddle? I've tried noting like my points in bullets or like numbered lists, like or questions that I've got, and I still don't get like the information that I need. I don't know. I guess like how would you approach it if you've got 4 different people with 4 different personality types and they want different kinds of information? I don't know. Any advice, I guess.
Yeah, really good question. So very different personality types. Yeah, you've tried a number of ways to try of see who they are and actually trying to get information from them. Let me open that up to the floor. Does anybody else want to? How do other people navigate this situation with Joe?
So are you in a position where you can actually say to them, look, this isn't working for me. How do we make it better?
Yeah, I thought somebody would say that. Yeah, it's difficult because obviously they're like the founders of the business. I probably could, but a lot of the time, so I'm closer with one of them. A lot of the time it's like, oh well, that's just laws, or that's just Rio, and it's kind of like swept under the carpet that they're not very good at communicating.
But it's
So
then
then it's like,
offering them a vision of how things could be better if they were better at communicating. What's in it for them, I suppose, if the communication is better. And can you talk to those individuals? Can you have some sort of coffee, whether it's a real or virtual one, and go and try and understand more specifically what makes them tick,
Yeah.
and what, so there will be understand what makes them tick, and then if you can, the next step is to try and get out of them how best they like to be asked questions or any clues like that. And then the other one is, if those people have people who work well with them, find out what it is, go to the middleman, if you like, and go, how do you get on with them so well? How do you get information out of these people?
Yeah,
you might get that clue.
Yeah.
Another one is this might be really bad, but I usually break down the questions to like the smallest possible. I break down the questions even further. If I'm not getting like proper answers, I'd be like, fine, answer this silly question. Like it's breaking down the question even more so they can't like there's no wiggle room with the answers. It's frustrating, but it's a start. And then they might get used to your questions.
Yes, almost a kind of like breaking things down so that there is no kind of there is a definite answer. They can't necessarily fob you off as well. Yes. Um, and something Susan mentioned, well, two things off the back of what Susan said as well. One, I don't know if you've read the book called Surrounded by Idiots. It's
I've got it,
okay.
yeah. I'm like
Um,
halfway through.
Yes, it's. I mean, well, you're kind of on that track, on the right track then, because actually, once, like Susan was saying, you can start to think, what actually does this person want, and how do they process information? It's a really good book. The premise isn't that you are surrounded by idiots, but more just that um, people think and process things a different way that makes you think, oh, they are just idiots, but actually they just process information in a different way. Um, and perhaps a practical tool just off back of what Susan was saying in terms of when you want to talk to them and saying this isn't working. Something that was I've been given the kind of situation impact experiment template, whereby you just list, hey, this situation had this impact. Can we experiment this to try and do things differently? And just like Susan was saying, if you have that coffee meeting with them, say, here are all the list of things, here are the impacts that they kind of resulted in. Um, why don't we try and experiment this? An experiment is always a really good term to use because it's non-binding, so to speak. But actually, if it works, then actually things will just kind of carry on as well.
Cool, thanks. Appreciate the answers, guys.
Nice. All right, thanks, Joe. Right. Any other questions? Kevin, how are we doing for time? Are we good?
We've got 6 minutes.
Question, Perry.
Oh, I had a. Oh, sorry.
No, you're gone. No, you're gone.
Hi, I joined a little bit late, sorry, so I didn't introduce myself at the beginning. I'm Sam Milhench. I'm a project manager of 18 years. And I thought it was quite interesting on your slide about being too nice, because I've been accused of that in the past. Accused of it. It's a nice thing, isn't it? I would have thought. But how do you not be too nice?
Yeah, really good question. How do you not be too nice? To be honest, what I and other people, kind of chime in as well. I don't think it's about not being a nice person. I think it is, you are who you are, okay, and your intrinsic who you are is who you are. Not to say that we can't change, we can't grow, but what we don't want to come across is that you have to be a hard-faced, hard-nosed, kind of corporate stalwart, and actually turn that smile upside down all the time. That's not what saying, and that's not what worked for me. I was, I've often been accused of being too nice. What I have had to do is start to kind of identify what underpins that. And sometimes you might need to kind of go back into why, for me, I don't like disappointing people, or I've grown up in a very respect-driven culture whereby upsetting people is frowned upon, and upsetting people in authority is frowned upon. So that was for me. What's causing that niceness to come out for you? And that might then start to be like, actually, there was this incident, or my pattern of behavior has been the person who does this because of that. And if you start to identify those kind of underlying traits, you can actually start to think, actually, it's okay if people are upset with what the decision I've made. There might be other things you can start to change. It's worth kind of going down that route. And equally, start flexing the muscle a little bit of when do you need to bring the strength. You can bring strength with niceness. I do it all the time and it works well for me. You don't have to be mean in order to be strong. You can bring that strength to a meeting, but you can still just flex that muscle. So maybe identify one interaction that you've had in the past and do some reflection to say what worked what worked well in that interaction, what didn't work well in that interaction, how did I feel, what can I do differently? So a bit of self-reflection in that loop. So just pick an example and then say, actually, what one thing would I change if that situation happened again? And then go into that next session and say, right, I'm going to, or another similar session and say, I'm going to do this differently. And you may mess up and you may it may not go according to plan, but actually it just means the next time round it'll be better. And then you start to build those muscles and flex those muscles of actually, my interactions are now more characterized by that strength. I'm still nice, but actually that strength comes in when it needs to, and having that judgment to say when do I need to bring that strength or warmth. What does anyone else think?
I think next time it happens that somebody's giving you the feedback that you're too nice, I'd kind of probe them a bit and say, in their opinion, what are the negative implications of my nicety? So what is me being nice doing that's causing a bigger problem? And ask them how they would handle the situation differently. Then you can make an assessment. Is there actually something there that you feel comfortable doing in the future? Or are they just an a-hole? And you don't want to copy what they do.
100% feedback is
Yeah.
key.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually, just probing them. Well, actually, what do you mean by that? Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Because it might make them go, actually, you've been nicer than I would be, but it's not caused any problems. Like, it's just you've dealt with it differently to what I would have. But if they can actually say, oh, by you being too nice now, they've gone off and they're going to carry on doing that because you haven't been stern enough with them or whatever, and it'll help you kind of assess, do you need to change or not? And if you do need to change, how could you?
Yeah, super. Thank you.
Got 1 minute, Perry, so I think probably a bit too late to fill another question, but I assume that you're going to be your normal good self and say if anybody has any questions afterwards, they can find you on LinkedIn, send you a message. I'd say the same for everyone, all on the call for the same reasons. We want to grow our networks, we want to support and help each other. So, don't be shy, connect with each other that's been on the call, and keep showing up to these sessions. I think Perry and the team organise one of these every single month. It'd just be good to get more people joining every single time we do that. So thank you very much for your time, Perry, and thanks Susan and Christine and Shamila and the guys that have helped organise this as well.
Thanks everyone.
Great.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Really good.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody. Thank you. Bye.